Welcome back to the Juiced Up Podcast. As you can see, it's just Nard and I again. No guests for this one, but we're going to talk a little bit about the guests we've had on and then also tease some upcoming guests as well. So, Nard, how we doing today? What we got on the agenda?
I'm literally sitting next to the Wi-Fi thing. I can pretty much hold it while we're podcasting. We're trying some new. The last podcast was a tough visual look. I think the audio's fine, which that's the most important thing for the listeners on Spotify. Subscribe, and download the podcast. But we're trying something different today. I think we're going to be in and out of the audio, but we might have to just resort.
Yeah, the audio is always playing. It's just a matter of if you're matched up to the audio. But
yeah.
So far we're good, so we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, but I liked having Sam and Mike on. I think it was definitely two different perspectives.
That was crazy that lined up back to back.
Yeah, I mean, I know we joked at
Flamethrower to soft tosser.
Yeah, we joked at first it was how to throw 100 and then how to throw 75. And yeah, I know the Sam dynamic was definitely because I mean, Sam's one of my best friends. I lived with him for a year, and we just dealt with all sorts of drama living in a four people in one college dorm room. So we kind of have that bonding experience. So to kind of get and record a podcast, and we had all of our teammates messing around in the background. So that was
shout out to them. That took me like 7 hours to edit that episode.
Yeah. So be a real shame if they started with a 1 for 20 slump as a karma.
When do they open up?
We should ask Sam. I think probably soon. I think probably beginning of March is usually when D3 starts. I know they go to Florida. I know they go down to Virginia, and they do a bunch of stuff before the season to kind of get going.
The Lions are kind of rolling.
Yeah, I know. You keep texting me all these weird camera angles of these.
Well, dude, it was so funny because I'm just like bored at work yesterday, and I'm like, oh, I'll see like what's going on. So I clicked on, and I look at their lineup, and the 3 or 4 hitters, T. Maynard, and I just started dying because your brother's Tommy Maynard.
Yeah.
I check back in just to see how they're going again, and I look at the scoring plays. It like in the first inning, T. Maynard hits a home run.
My long lost cousin or something. What was the first name? We gotta have this guy on the podcast.
I think it was Tyler. I think I looked it up. It was Tyler Maynard. So shout out Tyler Maynard if you're listening. Come on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I know I texted you a rant with the streaming because college baseball starting. So when I get Oregon State and Texas Tech on, I'm thinking I want to flip that on for a little bit. And we got 26,000 games on ESPN Plus, but these top 10 games or these top 25 games in the first week of the season that they're playing at MLB Stadium, nobody can throw that on stream. So,
yeah, dude, like I don't even think University of Tennessee was on anything.
Yeah, I guess I'll tune in April when SEC Network starts broadcasting all their games, and then they'll throw a couple games on ESPN Plus. But
yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about this off air. I think NAI like tries to make streams look bad. Like they're so terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think every school, and comment below if you have any, or add us on Instagram or social media if you have any stories of how your streaming goes, because I know most schools have tried to do something with the audio production, which is cool because like Francisca and none of my family could come and watch the games.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of necessary that you have people from all over the country that they want to watch their kids play. But
my thing is like you got these NAIs buying freaking baby blue uniforms when those aren't even your team colors, and you can't even get a legitimate stream running for your viewers. Like that makes no sense.
Yeah, because I mean, we're not expecting like world-class production. You're expecting it to be a little janky,
looking back at some of the clips that soft toss and lefties sent me, like those look like a legit, like that's at least a somewhat decent stream.
Yeah,
like dude, Brian's is literally set up on top of the hill from like 400 feet away, and like you can't even see that. Like you look like a freaking speck on the field.
Yeah,
like the highlight of my career was robbing a home run, and you couldn't even tell I robbed a home run because I'm out in right field and the video camera is 5,000 yards away.
Yeah, I know at first when I would like watch back some of our games and try and watch back some of at bats, half the times I could barely even see myself. I just see kind of I see it's a lefty. I can kind of see my mannerisms or whatever, but aside from that, like I can't tell if it's really a strike. I can't tell what the ball is doing. So I mean.
But dude, even D1 streams were kind of bad. I was watching some games this past weekend. Like Vanderbilt, you can't even tell who's hitting because the shadow's so bad.
Do they have like a behind the mound backdrop, or is it
Yeah,
just
yeah, it was like behind the mound.
uh,
Vandy is cheeks, by the way. They can never
I
hit.
know I saw FAU kind of gave him a tough first series. I've been trying to follow a little bit. I know Stony Brook beat LSU yesterday.
I feel like that
Uh,
always happens.
yeah, I know
Stony
Stony
Brook's
Brook.
always doing well.
They keep a good program.
NIU played
Um,
LSU the other day. I don't know
who
who
did?
won. Northern Illinois. I don't know who
I did see that. Yeah,
I don't know who won that game, but
LSU won that game.
you know who should get on the podcast is Wheels.
Wheels?
You don't know that guy on YouTube?
No, I don't. Where would I know him from?
Bro, he like posts like all the recaps of every college baseball game. He's
I'd be
called,
down.
it's called
I'd be
Wheels.
down with it. I mean, I think I do want to cover a little bit of just what's going on in the college season, just because it is one of the more exciting sports out there. It doesn't get covered a whole lot. I mean, it's overshadowed for the first 2 3 months by college basketball, and
Right.
then it's kind of going on with the MLB. And but in the last couple of years with the tournament, I know they've started broadcasting a lot more. It helps when you got Skeens and Langford and all these top prospects playing in the meaningful games. So
Yeah.
last year's a big step forward, and I think it's good too. And I think it does trickle down just to some of the lower levels too, that you start getting more attention on everything. Then it kind
Did
of
you
has
guys
a
have
network.
like because for NAI we had like NAI ball and they actually did a really good job of like making cool graphics and stuff like that. Like they're pretty good on Instagram and Twitter. Did you guys have anything like that for D3?
I think at the top they might have some like sorts of ways to promote everything, but at the individual conference level, it's kind of just each school has their own stream, and you kind of just get what you get. So
Did you see
yeah.
last week's midweek matchup between it was University of Tampa, which is the number one D2 versus Southeastern, the number one NAI.
Oh, that's see
That
that.
was
What was that? That like that should be the game's ESPN plus.
right? Like, dude, that's freaking sick. Tampa won like 11-8 or something.
Okay.
But dude, they should do more crossovers like that though.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think because I was looking at schedules, like I know Iowa was playing Loras.
Yeah,
I see some other things too. I know teams do play across divisions, but obviously for non-conference games, and I think it would be interesting that in a lot of these tournaments, like I mean, I think the way, and I think I want to talk a little bit more about NIL today. I got a couple questions for you and everything, but I think just with the way the sport's moving, that when you get away from like how many scholarships each team has, what is the difference really across divisions? Like if you take some of the top Division 1 schools and match them up against the top Division 2 schools, like if LSU plays Southeastern, what's what's the spread in that game? What's is there that big of a difference
dude,
in those two?
this is supposed to be like Southeastern's best year, which is saying a lot considering they've
Yeah,
won, like been at the World Series the past 20 years. So I don't know. I mean, I think like the D2 to NAI comp is pretty comparable, as you
yeah,
can see from that score. Like it was a competitive game. I think Southeastern was winning for the most part. I think some dude in Tampa just hit like a go-ahead grand slam or something like that.
yeah,
I don't know how it would be when you go like NAI to D1, but at the same time, like you have to think about a lot of NAI is former D1 players that either
mhm,
failed their classes, became a drug addict, or just didn't want to like play there anymore. So like I feel like the experience level is pretty similar.
right.
I mean, I always tell when no one knows NAI, I always just say it's comparable to D2 because I feel like top to bottom it pretty much is.
Yeah, on average, I would say the average NAIA team is probably similar to the average D2 team.
Yeah.
I think NAIA and D3, there's just so much variance with the teams. Like you're gonna get some like not every NAIA is Southeastern.
No.
It's like
I would argue that top to bottom is better in NAI than D3 though.
yeah, I would agree. I think D3 your floor is probably like mid-level JUCOs, really good high school teams. I mean, like there were teams in I played in D3 that were probably not as good as some teams I played in high school, but there were also teams that probably could have challenged some D1 or D2 schools. So
Who's the best D3 team, you know?
not off the top of my head. I know there's a couple. I think like Rowan maybe.
Hmm.
Let
Isn't
me
there
look.
one in like Florida that's supposed to be solid?
Honestly, I was never in a position at Franciscan where I was really looking at this too
Well,
much.
like, if you're going an LSU matchup, are you going top D3 versus LSU or top NAI versus LSU?
Probably top NAIA, but I think if you did top, I mean, that's the thing that a lot of D3, it's you're gonna have guys that are throwing mid 80s, but they're really good at throwing mid 80s, and
Did you
everyone.
face any not like 90 arms in D3 or no?
I don't think there were a couple. There was one or two guys I remember facing that were probably touching 90.
Because dude, I'd
And
argue almost every number one that we saw was at least upper eights, low nines, like a Friday starter
yeah,
in NAI. Like you're gonna have at least one to three guys that are consistently like upper eights, low nines with like a good off speed.
yeah. Yeah,
Like
I don't think on any of the good D3 teams you're going to see someone throwing below 85. And I think that's kind of the difference because I really think across, and I maybe speak to this with NAA, but hitting wise at the D3 level, everyone is able to hit. Maybe power is a little bit of a difference, like moving up levels, but
I
like,
guess yeah, I think that maybe I'd say NAI is more of like you get more streaky hitters,
yeah,
like more guys that are kind of just like when they're good, like they're really good, but when
yeah.
they're down bad. So
In D3 is a lot more of like guys are going to have high batting averages, guys are going to put some ridiculous stats,
hmm,
and it's a little more of a hitters league, I think I'd say.
that makes sense. I
So
mean, yeah, you look at the
that's
draft too. Like most of the low level hitters are coming D2, D3. Very like even dudes that go off in the NAI, I feel like get kind of looked over. But like if you're a good arm in the NAI, like you have a chance to get drafted.
yeah. Are there any NAIA guys in the pros right now?
Ben Zobrist went to Olivet Nazarene.
Right, but that was
Um,
kind of he was in
I thought
college.
there was like a couple that are I don't know. I don't really follow it up with that much, but I think there was a pitcher from like Science and Arts that
Okay.
was in there a few years ago. Um, yeah, I don't know.
By the way, the
Or did
D3.
he go to Olivet Nazarene or somewhere else?
Oh yeah, he went. Zobrist went to Olivet.
Yeah,
We got Johns Hopkins, Salisbury. Salisbury's I think the one that might have won it.
yeah, I think they're pretty solid.
Baldwin Wallace.
They're good.
I know Aurora's on here. That's kind of local to
Yeah, there you
us.
go. Are you taking Aurora versus LSU, or are you taking Southeastern versus LSU?
Probably Southeastern.
Yeah, like
I think if you did a 7 game series, I think Aurora wins one or two of those. I
yeah.
think Southeastern.
I
It's
mean, that's
probably
the other thing too. It's like it's baseball. Like anything can happen. It depends. Like if you take Southeastern and you put them in a freezing environment, like they're not going to play as well if they would if they're
yeah,
home in Florida.
yeah,
Um, so yeah,
yeah.
I don't
So
know.
hopefully we can keep getting some current players, former players, current coaches on as guests. I mean, I think we do better as a podcast when we kind of have the opportunity to just go outside of us two and we can kind of bring in some other people's opinions, see how that relies in or see how their experience compares to ours. Because that was I know the main feedback that I got from with Coco was that D1 it's not everything is you have the $1 million facilities and all the kids that are going to get drafted like at the middle and lower levels of D1, it's pretty comparable to the environment of any good team. And I mean, obviously, Sam, I pretty much know the culture. Francisca, I know how that goes and everything. But it just goes to show that winning baseball is not exclusive to a level that there is still standards that have to be met at any area of competition. That if you have guys that are excited to go to practice, that get along well with the coaches, that buy in, that commit in the weight room, that understand their priorities, you're going to have a winning environment. And it doesn't, that's not really exclusive to D1 or D2 or any level.
For sure.
And I think,
Agreed.
yeah, I think just with the next few guests, I think that's where I'm curious too. Just can we see other people that have attain different levels or different amounts of success, whether it's in pro ball, whether it's in indie ball, whether it's in or pro ball, indie ball, same thing.
And
Or
get some offense on the pod finally. I'm excited to
yeah,
have
yeah.
that
And I
here.
know we have a couple people that we've mentioned just internally that we're looking at, and yeah, I mean, and the open invitation goes is that we want to talk to current players. We want to get people's perspectives, and I think that's just something that we're looking for, just with people to discuss that can help us learn a little bit, and then we can kind of help showcase what their story is.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a question for you just to kind of move along the podcast, but
Yes.
we had a lot of back and forth about your post with the Slumpbuster, as we've referred it, but I think that came from a text message or text thread between me and you. So I just kind of wanted to ask what was sort of the motivation to put that out, and like why did that stick with you so much?
Well, so here, long-winded story. I was gonna, we talked about this throughout the week. Like my original blog post was gonna be about like not bashing education because I think especially in the strength and conditioning world, everyone just bashes education and they're like, oh, like you don't need a degree, like go just start training people and get jacked. Which like I think to an extent that's true, but it's also just a very close-minded take. And especially me coming out of college, I was the same way just because I didn't think that Brian really prepared me well. But it almost goes like now that you're looking back at it, it's like if you're going to school for any degree, hoping that they're going to prepare you for life, like you're just dead wrong yourself. Like that's just only going to come with experience, which I think people miss the bigger picture with that. So I was literally like all in on going that post. And then I just had a really rough incident with some people at work where it like literally just solidified why education is stupid. Um, so I was just like, authentically, I could not write that in that moment where I was just like education has so much value. Like this is why you should go. I couldn't write that in that moment. So I was laying in bed. I knew that down the road, I think that'll be a good blog. But like the main thing that I wanted the blog to serve as is a way for me to just kind of carve out some time throughout my week where I just authentically write what's on my mind. And then it also just provides content too. So then I'm laying in bed the other night. I'm just like, what should I post about? Like, what's relevant, like right now? Like, what's actually going on with some people? And then for some reason, that post just came to my head. I think I was like reading the Eric. I've been reading the Eric Burns book. Do you know who that is?
No, which one's he?
He's on MLB Network a lot. He
Oh,
plays
Eric
for
Burns.
A's.
Wow. Yeah, I'm done.
You know who
Yeah.
that is? Okay. So I've been reading his like book. It's just essentially like a bunch of like journal entries that he turned in like a 600-page book. And I think one of his like journal entries was about like a slump buster and how to like get out of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's literally like that one time that I had with you. And then the crazy part was, dude, I don't even know if you realized this, but like it was literally right around this time. It was February 28th.
Hmm.
So I thought that was kind of cool. So then I texted you because my phone, I have like no storage on my phone. So I had to delete all of my messages. So I'm like, crap, like I can't find that as like proof. Like it's not going to make it work. So I texted you at like, what was it, like 10 o'clock at night the other night?
It was the latest I've gotten a text from you in a while.
Yeah, because
You're
I was just like
usually in bed
laying
by
in bed.
9
I
p.m.
was laying
usually
in bed
around.
thinking about it. Hannah even like yelled at, not yell at me, but she was like, "Why do you keep moving?" And I'm just like, "Oh, dude, sorry. I'm just like thinking right now." But it's interesting. So it was funny. I texted you that. I was like, hopefully he still got it. And then I wake up and it's the screen recording of the whole text thread. I'm like, let's go. So then from there we just kind of rode and yeah, that's kind of how the post came about. And then literally like when I was writing that blog, dude, like that was the and I it was a long it's a long blog if you check it out. It felt like I said like it was like a 6 to 8 minute read. And I just banged that thing out in like 30 minutes. Like everything was just like kind of flowing. I kind of just walked through my journey of like freshman year to sophomore year to junior year to senior year and kind of breaking it down because my overarching theme was just like when you're sucking, the worst thing that you can do is go try to work your way out of it. Because like if you look at that text thread, it's on Instagram. If you look at that text thread, like you'll see that like I was down bad and I was texting you. I'm like, we're gonna get back like at 1 a.m. All I'm gonna do all night is just hit. Like I'm just gonna hit until I figure it out. And even like when I sucked in the fall, I remember doing that. It was like 1 or 2 a.m. and I convinced one of my roommates to come hit with me, and we were hitting soft toss at like 1:30 in the morning when we had a 10 a.m. game the next day. And it's like none of that actually does anything because you're just continually like either trying to press the issue, like you're not giving your mind to just decompress. So that's kind of what I was trying to get a point with that cross or with that post is that um I don't think you realize those things until you're out of the game, until you can actually see it all come together. And like the jabroni that I was texting, aka you, like now we're starting a podcast. So it's just kind of cool to just see things transform. But like in that moment, you're just so invested, like you don't see anything outside of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the lesson for me was that I don't remember. Again, you mentioned something with the pod or with the conversation. I just have all of my messages still on my phone that I know of. So I was just keywording, and I'm like, I probably have this somewhere, but like I don't remember it. That's what's funny is that like I kind of remember some of the memes with it, where it's like you just like joking about how much you suck and everything, but like I don't remember too much about that whole thing. But just kind of reading through what I had to say, like I definitely like recognized that like you were fighting something and you wanted to kind of hear my opinion, which I think is a good thing just to everyone to keep in mind that you're going to have people in your life that are going to ask you stuff and you have to realize how what kind of what they need to hear and what they're kind of looking for. Because I remember the one thing I said to you too is like stop just thinking about how bad you are and how you need to fix everything. That's the same stuff that you get mad about me for having no self-confidence, for having no conviction, everything. So I'm just thinking about here, like, so what would want myself to kind of hear? And where I was kind of like, I remember there was this junior or senior year that this was going
This was
on?
this was senior year, so I mean, it was like because I remember senior year, I started off pretty well. Like I had a, which for the most part for my career, I feel like I always kind of did well towards the end. But like senior year, I started off pretty well. Like I had a good weekend series. I think within the first week or two, I had like 3 or 4 home runs. So like doing pretty good. And then like we hit a lull as a team and like we could not buy a win. And that's why it's in the text like no one was hitting above 300. Like we were just sucking. So yeah, it was like right around senior year where like things just kind of went downhill. I think like a week or two before that, I had told my coach that like this is not gonna be like my last year. So I was just under the expectation that because I told him that was gonna be my last year, like I was gonna start to just play every single game like it mattered so much and just putting like all this pressure on myself. But yeah, it was like it was right around senior year.
Because I remember what I was relating that to. Because remember the one thing I told you was like, go just sit outside. You said there was a hill in your stadium, and I kind of had a similar experience. Because I remember my junior year was when I transferred into Franciscan. I was not. I wouldn't say I was not playing a lot. Like I was not a starter. I was still playing probably every third game, starting, getting a lot of pinch hit at bats. But the frustrating part with that is because when I started the year, I think I started off like 0 for 20 or something. I was not putting together, I was striking out a lot. I was not putting together a whole lot of great at bats, which kind of hurt my chances of going through the way. And I remember the one game that I got a couple pinch hit opportunities late in the game. And I remember like one of them, I think I might have like struck out on like a 14 pitch at bat. And I think the second one, I think I like flied out to the warning track and like extra innings. And I'm just kind of sitting there thinking, well, that was my chance to get in the lineup. I was putting all this pressure on myself. So, and I think that game too, I don't remember what I was in headspace, but I think I just stayed. I might have came back to the field after. I might have been right after. And I literally there was a whole wall or there was a hill at Franciscan that just overlooks the in center field, and I kind of think I just kind of walked up it. I think I was still wearing my baseball pants or something because there was all sorts of weeds, and I was probably gonna get ticks or something. I didn't care at that point. So I kind of just went up there. I sat. I might have prayed. I might have had my Bible with me, but I think at that point I was just kind of looking at everything and just kind of thinking, trying to let a lot of the stuff process. Because when you're in season, you don't get a whole lot of time to really sit back and think like, what does this all mean in my life? This is it is because I've always said too, like baseball is not my identity. When I'm playing baseball, I don't think of it very much as an identity yet. When you're in it so much, you kind of start to see yourself as only that person, and that kind of just helped me to just kind of remove myself and just kind of look stuff in the big picture. Like, okay, you're playing on a college team, you're healthy, you're you're getting opportunities. People in your life don't love you any less because you're failing. God doesn't love you any less because you're failing. Just because you're and the other thing too is just the fact that like again, I said I think I flew out to the warning track. If I maybe catch that ball 2 split seconds in the earlier, it's a walk-off homer. And
Mm-hmm.
I think in the moment, I'm putting a ton of pressure on myself for that. But looking back on it, I'm thinking, like, well, why am I going to get upset about something that was just like a split second thing that literally could have gone any way and I have no control over? Because when you're hitting, you have a certain, you have amount of control that you can swing at good pitches, you can be prepared for certain pitches. But oftentimes, like whether you hit a ball well or not, like you're going to hit a lot of good balls that you're just going to miss. That's a phrase that happens. And it's funny too that sometimes like if you're 0 for 4 and you're 3 for 4, the difference could just be where people are positioned. It could be maybe if I was in a hitter's count, what my approach was. It's such little things that it's not worth forming my moods over if I perform well or not. And that's kind of just something I learned in my life. And in that moment, I kind of just saw that you were in a similar position where you're putting a ton of pressure on yourself, where you were kind of almost thinking in a way like you're wondering, what is it my fault? What am I doing wrong? Why have I failed? And my mentality with that is just for you to realize like it's not your fault. It's just part of the game. This is what you signed up for. You need to kind of just get your headspace that way.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is like, I mean, it wasn't like a radical transformation in that moment, but I think just over time, like looking back on it, it had a huge impact because like I remember, I don't like literally remember like what happened after that, and it just kind of goes to show how none of it really does matter in the end. But I do know that I continued to suck after that. Like I think I was under the impression that because I had like this eye-opening experience, I was going to go out and just ball out the next day, and that's like far from what happened.
Right.
Um, but like I think just the experience as a whole, it kind of just shows you the purpose of reset and just pausing and being in the moment and actually
Yeah.
reflecting on what's going on.
And I know just to compare to my senior year, like the thing is too, like a baseball season is such it feels like so long, but you're spending 8, 9 months preparing for it and like 2 or 3 kind of playing. And even I know you played probably 4 or 5 NAA ball in the South is a little longer. But I remember my senior year, I think I got an opportunity I was playing every day because I think because of an injury or something. And I kind of knew in the moment, like the first like 10 at bats, I was putting so much pressure on myself. Like I need to do well, otherwise I'm not going to play. And then eventually, I think I might have got a couple hits or something. And eventually, you just kind of have. I just realized, like, you know what? It's my senior year. It does it all this like me sitting here worrying about getting nervous about something, putting the pressure on myself. That doesn't make it when I fail. It doesn't make it any worth it. Like if I'm sitting in the field worrying about what's going to happen if I can feel the ground ball, when I make an error, I don't feel any better because I sat worrying about it.
Mhm.
So the approach is kind of just to remove yourself and to just kind of put it in perspective. And it's not going to, like you said, it's not going to correlate to if you're going to your preparation and how you feel and your outlook on the game is not necessarily just going to be mean you're going to be really successful. If you will go 5 for a 10 in a series, it's not just because you were thinking that this isn't that important. This is just a part of life. It's just a game. Just because you're thinking that way doesn't mean you're going to have success. But when you have failure and when you're kind of going through trials, that's where it's going to get a little more easier to deal with.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what were some things that maybe you learned from that you would take into your approach, like whether you're struggling, like you're trying to hit, do you do like form like mental routines before game? Were there things you tried to do in warm-ups or in practice to maybe kind of put yourself in that position?
Yeah, I think there's the mindset of being still, and just like having some sort of like guidance where you're not really forced to think about anything was really big. So I think after that, a big thing that I started to do was just like before every game, I would jog out to center field and I would just kind of like take my hat off, go out on the knee. Sometimes I would pray, but most of the times it was more so just kind of like being silent. And I feel like that's a big thing sometimes. Like I feel like sometimes when we're trying to pray before a game or something like that, it can almost just feel like a forced habit.
Yeah.
I think sometimes like just being quiet and just kind of feeling what God is telling you in that moment in your heart, like that can be a lot more pivotal than trying to like trying to force the issue with something. So yeah, this I think the big thing that taught me was just how sometimes it's just okay to just go sit and be with your thoughts. And if you want to write some things down that come to you in the moment, like go for it. But don't feel like you have to have like the perfect thing to say in every single moment. It's like literally sometimes saying nothing is the best. Like just being still is kind of like what I think I learned from that.
Hmm. And I think to the same point too that like in term you mentioned that you were going to go start hitting at 1:30 a.m. Like is that really going to help you? It
Yeah.
might, but
It might make you feel better.
yeah, it might because I know I've had experiences too where sometimes if you're feeling bad, you just need to go head off a tee or get some flips or get some cage work just to kind of feel yourself hitting a barrel. And sometimes that can help, but if you're just going into that session thinking, I need to fix myself, you're probably missing something that you're probably just overwhelming yourself
Yeah,
and
and I
just,
will say, anytime I've been in a slump, the ways I've came out of it was just not doing baseball related things.
yeah.
I think anyone can say that. I don't think like you go 0 for 10 with 10 strikeouts, and then I don't think you go in the cage that night, try to figure some things out, and the next day you just figure it out. Like, no, it's just like you stop thinking about the game for a little bit, and then you
Yeah.
just trust that you've done enough. Because like every athlete's probably prepared enough. Like, so
Right.
trying to prepare more in season is just going to put more pressure on yourself. So.
Yeah. That's the night where you go to Taco Bell or go to Dairy Queen, you get the homies to go play ping pong or MLB, the show or something, and you just kind of you take your mind off of it. You just because again, yeah, it's usually you said it right. If you in season, if you're not prepared, it's going to show. So going to just go get more cage work or get more reps is not always the answer.
Right.
If there's something mechanical that you need to fix or need to feel yourself doing, sure, go at that. But also, you can make that part of your routines. It doesn't have to just be stimulated by when you fail at something.
You got anything
I
else
don't
on
know.
you got anything else on Slumpbusters?
No, I think we summed it up. And again, everyone check out Grant's post and just feel free to message any of us either. Well, Grant, because I'm not on social media, but
Yeah, if you need our cravings box order, let us know.
yeah, but feel free if you ever, once we get in season, if you need to hear from two people who've done it before, who've gone through just about everything, you can go through mentally and physically in college season. Where that's why we're doing this. So, what do we got next?
Well, you got the is it Pitino? Pinto, you
Yeah,
say?
Pitino. Yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of Q&A, I think. Well, we were kind of just thinking of things to discuss, but we discussed the whole Izzo or the Tom Izzo
Let me
berating
just
his
preface
player.
this by saying, for someone who claims to not be on social media, you are a huge Twitter guy.
I've gotten a little bit on Twitter. I have it for some like I pretty much use it just to follow the college basketball storylines, which is why that's the material that I'm bringing into the podcast. But
No, I mean I don't go on Twitter because especially for the strength industry, it's just every coach bashing one another, so I stay off of that. But anytime you do send me the rants, I do like to just scroll through and see everyone's comments. But that one was very outlandish, if I'm being 100% honest. I think the Izzo one had some validity behind it because I felt like his approach was less of bashing the players, and I almost liked how it was like a little bit of sarcasm, where he was like, "You can't blame players anymore. Like I'm gonna take every ownership," because I think he actually did mean that, but I also think he was also speaking some truth upon the fact that like you really can't blame players and they don't have a whole accountability. So I guess I just like the way he went about it more. I still don't entirely agree with him bringing it to the media. And I think that's the main thing with both of these scenarios. It's like, do you really have to bring it to the media, or could this be something that's kind of done behind closed doors? And then the way that Pitino, Pinto,
Tina,
Pitino, the way that he went about it, just from the text messages you sent me, like his was just he was legitimately calling out players by their name and saying everything that's terrible about them. And it's just like I just don't think like that's going to resonate with any player these days. Like if we are all in agreement that players are not as mentally tough as we once used to be, that's not the approach you take with players.
well, the mentally tough thing is an interesting thing because I think when coaches use the phrase they're soft or mentally tough, I think they kind of use that in the attitude like they can't their mentality is they can't handle being yelled at or they're not coachable or I tell them to do something and they don't listen to me. So just kind of in the follow up, we're recording this. They did win their next game.
There we
They
go.
they beat Georgetown, who's one of the worst teams in the country, at least at the upper level in the Big East. But that was one of his rants. Is like, I don't even think we could beat Georgetown right now. So I think what we're seeing is coaches have this idea that, especially at like again, our neither of our coaches in college were going to go and like rant to the media or to the local newspaper because nobody cares. There's not national headlines on Brian or Franciscan, but St. John's in New York or Michigan State, those are schools where they have dedicated fan bases, boosters, big NIL collectives. So they have people that are going to listen to that and they're going to care. So if you're going out and if they're going to use that in a way that if okay, if I'm yelling at you, you're not listening to me, you're still not committing yourself. Well, maybe if you see something on TikTok of me blowing blowing up on you, maybe that'll wake you up, or maybe that'll kind of send something that'll send a message. So in that aspect, I think if it's I mean, Rick Pitino is in the same category of Tom Izzo as a college basketball coach, that he has won a ton. He's established himself. Obviously, he had the whole conflict thing. I don't know if you know what the whole history is, but if you follow college basketball, Rick Pitino's had some off the court issues. Um, we're still a Christian podcast, so I'm not going to really get into a ton of those. You can look at that up on Wikipedia. But in terms of basketball, he's won national championships. He's coached draft picks. So in a way, if you're a player playing for him, he does kind of know what he's talking about. He served his time. This isn't just some first year head coach that's been an assistant and it's his first gig and he's bashing his players. This is a guy that's established in the industry. So if he's calling out his players, you know he's probably right that the work ethic is there.
Yeah, I think you can still do that though. But I think my thing is like, why do these coaches feel like that needs to be brought up in a post game conference?
What I didn't like about that either is, again, the Izzo thing, they played a bad game. I think it might have been a stretch of bad series, but it wasn't like the team, you didn't get the impression that the team was quit. You got more of the impression that he was trying to light a fire under their rear ass.
Right.
The St. John's thing, he was more like criticizing that, like, I failed my roster construction. They'd lost like 4 games in a row. That very much sounded like the wheels had fallen off and they were kind of mailing it in. And he was just trying to save face and to try and make an excuse for why the team was bad.
I don't know. It's like there's still a lot of game to be played left. I get March Madness starts up soon, but like, I don't know. Like, I just don't think that shows a lot of respect to the players from a coach's end. Like, if you're already writing them off, like they're like things can change drastically. I get you gotta let a fire under them, but like, what does that say to you as a coach if you're writing your players off that early in the season or that even whenever? Like, I don't know.
And it seemed like that was the brunt of the criticism, was just if you're a player that's in the transfer portal or that's looking for somewhere to play next year as a freshman or as a transfer, if you're going to see a coach that treats his players that way, where if you're not that, because that's the thing too, is if you're not winning games, if you lose 4 games in a row, do you want to be at a school where the coach is just going to call you out on social media?
No.
And that's kind of to where I say with this is we kind of came with the conclusion in the other one that each coach is going to have their different approach of how they're calling players. But as people who have done it in the player coach sort of role, it's that like you need to figure out what your players are going to listen to. And this should not be the first option. So if you're a coach thinking that, okay, I'm at a mediocre D1 school, we're 17-36 with 3 games left in the series. We might make our conference tournament, but I've mostly quit. So I'm just going to call out the players and maybe that'll help. Like, that's not going to work. Chances are, if you're calling your players out like this, that there's already a sense of a fractured environment that you're not fixing. And that's something just to be mindful too of. If you're a player coach, remember that, especially with social media, that actions have consequences. So if you go in, you can't take back anything you say in the internet. So you can apologize for it. And again, it's not against many of my other reasons, but it's why I've somebody said a lot of times to me too, like if you're going to post something, if it's something that's emotional, like maybe when you're going off of when you're interacting with strength and condition coaches, when there's anything on coaching on in the internet, it's almost like if you're going to say something, write it down, put it there, then say, okay, I'm going to wait, I'm going to sleep on it. And if I come back tomorrow and feel the same way, then I'm going to post it.
Yeah, no, I've definitely done, there's been a lot of times where I've like crafted a post and I'm just like, oh, this is perfect. And then I look at it the next day and it's like, is it really worth like getting into an argument, like unintentionally calling this person out? So
yeah,
or intentionally for that matter. But yeah, I agree with that.
It's the same thing with coaches too, that when if you're so upset after a loss and you lay into your team or you start calling guys in the media, you can't take that back to them.
No.
Whatever you say, unfortunately, when we remember all of our coaches' blowups, we don't remember all the times where they just said, okay, we'll get them next time. We did some things good, we did some things bad. Which we remember when they would punish us and tell us you have to go run, or when they would yell and like talk about their job status. Like that's what we remember as players. So anytime you're going to bring that out, you have to understand if players are going to respond to that. and that it's going to make you look not like the coach that they probably need at the time. It's going to make them look more like they're just trying to cover for themselves as opposed to helping the team figure it out.
So what would your advice be to, and obviously going to the media is not the move there. So like, what's an advice to get that kind of fire underneath your players?
That's a great question. I don't want to speak to that too much just because I don't know the problems going on in the
Answer it
team.
from a player perspective. Like, what would
But
motivate you in a moment where
I think
that's
yeah,
happening?
we'll just say that if I'm on that team, I think the first thing you want is you want your coaches to have the accountability internally. So if there's a guy that you're complaining about in your starting lineup that's you thinking is lazy, that's not competing, before you call him out in the media, bench him. Put in the walk-ons, put in somebody else, make the statement that way. I
That's
remember
a good point.
that's what they did at Wabanzi the one time too. Was I think some of the guys they weren't too happy. That's how I got my opportunity. Is they weren't happy with the effort, with the commitment level with some of those guys. So I think a lot of times coaches feel attachment to certain players that if they recruit someone that's really high, well, but they realize kind of they don't have a great attitude, they want to keep giving them opportunities because they want it to work with them. But a lot of times too, I mean, athletes respond to just not playing. Is that when you're playing all the time, you complain about your coaches, you complain about all this, but once you start seeing the bench, your whole attitude changes because now it's, oh, I didn't really want to sit out. I didn't really want to be injured or anything. Now I want to be out there playing. So I'm just going to get mad at my coach for not. And I think that would be how I say it too. Like if he's, I think at least again, you're playing Georgetown, who's not the greatest team. If you're that worried about the five guys that you're playing, committing, just say,
Then play
look,
your backups.
I'm yeah, I'm done. We're throwing out the JV team. I don't care if we lose because the season's already lost. Say that internally, and then after the game, when they ask that, just say, I don't like the effort of some of my players. I wanted to send a message.
Yeah.
Whether they get it or not, we'll see.
Dude, the emotional attachment thing is actually a good point. I didn't even think about that, but like you do look at a lot of coaches and they just have like it's just like this brotherhood thing. It's like, oh, because I recruited this guy, I'm gonna try to make sure that he plays more, even when he's struggling. I'm gonna give as many opportunities as he can. It's like at the end of the day, like you have to let the player that's actually producing play. I don't really know. Do you think that happens still at the top? I mean, because that definitely happened in like JUCO and AI and E3 levels. Do you think that happens at top levels still?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I don't think it does to the extent, but I think when you look at a lot of teams, that oftentimes you take like remember the Nationals when they won the World Series?
Hmm.
Remember they just lost Bryce Harper the year before.
Right.
Not saying anything against Bryce Harper, he's one of the best to ever do it, and he's from what we see too, he's a good teammate and everything too, but although polarizing. But sometimes when you take such a star power guy off of a team, or you because again, when Bryce Harper's on a team, he's your three hitter every day. He's starting in the field if he's healthy. You can't just bench a guy like that.
Hmm.
When you have and again, there's not college players that are like Bryce Harper, but there's
But
college
there's
players
guys you build a team
that
around for
yeah,
sure.
there's people that have that sort of treatment. So a lot of times when you kind of get rid of those guys, or those guys are kind of off of a team, it kind of forces other people to step up and to prove something. And athletes with something to prove are always going to be more driven than athletes who are just there every day because they know they're supposed to be.
That's true.
And I think that would probably be because again, I can think of a lot of teams that have kind of gone on runs maybe where again the Rangers just won the World Series without Scherzer and DeGrom. The
Hmm.
year before that, the Padres made the playoffs when with Tatis being suspended the whole year. He
Right.
comes
But you
back this
almost
year and they
start to
don't.
rally around something else.
Yeah, and I think too, and I'm thinking about how Wabanzi everything played out too. I think teams do recognize that when you're giving people opportunities to play based on maybe the commitment levels and you're not holding sort of favorites and you're holding everyone to the same standard because I think the one thing that I noticed is that when you're a player you're always going to set your own lineups, you're going to think this is who I should be if I was coaching. Every player does that with the team. So if you're the coach, if every single one of their players thinks that something you're doing is bad or that one guy's getting too many opportunities or he's getting a certain favoritism, you probably are.
Right.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, I like that. That was a good way. That was a good one.
Yeah, because again, your best players should always be in the lineup, but it should be the 9 people that everybody on the team
Agrees with, yeah.
that if you're on the bench, that everyone's going to complain if you're on the bench, but everyone's going to complain more when there's somebody that they think that they should be ahead of.
Hmm.
If everybody's hitting 350 and everybody's hustling out everything, and there's never a reason to pull anybody in the game, no one on the bench really has any claim to go in.
Yeah. Yeah, well said.
You got any other questions you want to mention?
I'm gonna look here. But I think that was probably good. Yeah, I think the main thing with even relating it back to the Slumpbuster stuff is just like as a coach, like know your values, know where you stand with your players, but then as a player, just be realistic with where you're at too. That's
Yeah.
all I got. You got anything else?
Yeah, like I got one other thing too, just going on the baseball world, and I think it'll be a good discussion. But have you seen the whole MLB new uniforms?
I've seen some of them.
Yeah, apparently the first of all they reduced the quality of like the trim and the lettering a ton, and they look like they were cheaply made. Because I don't know if you were into the jerseys as a kid or everything, but I know a lot of people you want to get a cool jersey, so instead of paying $180 for the one on NBA.com or MLB.com, you get the off-brand one in China that's like $40, but
Right.
there's something off with the stitching. And I think the whole thing is the MLB they did that, and they also the pants are like see-through. Like there's pictures and like you can like see like the tucked in jersey
No way.
through like the pants. Yeah. So the question I have there is like what's go talk through your jerseys in college or in high school. Like what was like do you have any really bad jersey stories?
Let's see. I'm trying to think what bonds. I think what bonds were honestly pretty nice for the most part. I didn't have an issue. I think the ones that we got that had our names on them, I thought those were kind of lame.
Yeah,
The
I still
V-neck, they
have
gave
it.
me like travel ball vibes.
Yeah, I still have it hanging in the office just because that's the one thing that I have because we have again in college you have to turn back all your equipment, so I still have that. So I'm like it's kind
Yeah.
of I got that and a framed picture of Franciscans. So I just thought it was funny that like literally the walk on you give number 46. So I just thought that was a funny sort of dynamic that like late in the season you got 46 at second base with and it's not like a PO or something. It's kind of a funny number.
Yeah, that is funny. I just felt like the whites on there, like they were just they never matched the pants. So
Yeah,
it was two different
I agree
colors.
with that too. I did like the jersey combos though. They were a little see through though.
Yeah, the Oakton we had some nice uniforms. I liked Oakton's uniforms. Brian's were pretty good for the most part. Our all blacks were pretty cool. Um, the ones that were bad, like they looked good, but they just fit really bad were the pinstripes. Like
Hmm.
they were really short. And but then if you tried to get like a bigger size, then they would be way big on your waist. But the pinstripes, I liked the look of the pinstripes. They just didn't really fit well.
Yeah,
I think
pinstripes.
quality wise, like all of my jerseys were pretty quality, I'd say.
Yeah, I know pinstripes. A lot of teams try and pull them out, but you gotta be able. If you're gonna put the pinstripes on, I think you gotta be able to back it up.
Yeah, I think they like you can't wear pinstripes like flooded. Like they gotta be almost cuffed at the bottom, like how Vandy does them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like those Vandy, the all black ones. I
The
mean,
Ole
you
Miss
guys have the
ones.
cool concept with the red pinstripes. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, dude, like the white and red pinstripe would have been really like cool as long as the pants fit better. Like the
Yeah,
pants, everyone's just like looked really bad because they were so flooded.
I just know Franciscan. No, I think we had maybe 3 medium jerseys and like 40 XL jerseys. So literally, like you can look at the pictures of me, but like my sleeve, it was basically like I was wearing this sweatshirt. Like my sleeves were like down to here. The jersey went down to like my knees. So I'm like trying to tuck that in.
You
It's
looked like
all
even more of a walk on.
no, it was yeah, it was not. Again, some of the uniforms there were like we could have. They were. I mean, the green ones definitely were the best. Those looked cool. The
What are
gold
your thoughts on the baby blues? Like, for example, like University of Illinois having a baby blue.
they were red and I know that there was a phase where everybody did that, I think, at like all levels. But like I mean like the St. Louis Cardinals can do it. Ole Miss can do it.
Well, I mean, Ole Miss was like the OG baby blues, I think.
Yeah, but like I don't think you can just copy that. I think that's something like I don't know. But like that's also like Ole Miss uses that across like they use baby blues for football now.
Yeah.
Like, they use that for everything. Like, is ISU, are they putting it for? Are they rebranding or something?
No, it was University of Illinois.
Oh, University of Illinois.
You haven't seen those?
No, you know what? I think I have.
Yeah, they have baby blues.
Well, they can. I guess they can kind of make the
How?
claim.
They're orange and blue, like
Well, they're like
navy
navy.
blue.
You could say that navy blue is, I guess, closer. Like that's why Ole Miss can still do that too.
I know Creighton did them too.
Well, Creighton, their color is like it's like a light blue, so they can.
Yeah. I mean, they're the Blue Jays. That makes sense. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
I
think
mean,
of
I
other
don't.
teams.
I mean, I think it's similar. It's probably a step up from pinstripes. I think that if you're gonna pull those off, you better be able to play. Like I think the whole thing with the baby blues is you better those uniforms better all be dirty by like the third inning.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you're just gonna show up and get rolled 12-0
And
and
baby
not have to
blues.
wash
Yeah.
them, just throw yeah. If you're U of I, throw on the oranges or just yeah.
Thoughts on U of I baseball?
I mean, I haven't followed too much this. I haven't followed too much this year. I mean, we went to the game last year, and I thought, I mean, they were definitely a. They had some guys that looked like they can play, but they
Are you taking Southeastern or U of I?
I'd probably. I mean, if it's
In a
at you,
5-game series.
that's a home game split. If they play anywhere south of Kentucky, taking Southeastern. If they have to go to U of I and it's not above 65 degrees,
U of
I think
I
in the
grind
Midwest
it
we're
out.
a little more prepared for it.
Yeah.
I think that's still a little bit of a stigma that goes on. Like everyone says SEC baseball and ACC they're so great and everything. No, those teams just are in the South so they can play year round. Like
No,
if
I
they
mean the SEC is on a different level.
if they okay, fine, SEC aside. No, but so you're telling me that if Vanderbilt had to go play in Michigan on March 3rd, that you don't think Michigan would maybe have a little bit they might have that chance?
I've stated very clearly multiple times throughout this podcast. I think Vandy is trash every year.
You what about the years they won it?
Well, dude, like their best hitter this year is Bolger, and he hit 250 last year.
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't think they can hit. I think
what?
on the mound they're always going to compete, but I don't think they have the offense anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely not wrong. I mean, they definitely have more of a pitching factory than a hitting factory. I mean, who's an
Well, dude,
MLB?
the years they won it, they had like Dansby Swanson and
Yeah, Dansby Swanson. Who was the other guy?
like they actually had like
Okay.
household names. You don't really like hear household hitter names at Vandy anymore.
No.
Like
Nice.
Bolger, that's your household hitter name.
Yeah. Who's that guy at West Virginia that's like hitting like 450?
Uh,
We need to prepare a little bit more of a
Sam
college
Tyler.
baseball. Sam Tyler. Funny. Sam hits 600 this year, transfers to like Pitt or West Virginia, gets drafted as a hitter.
That's hilarious. I think we're good with this. That was a solid rant there.
Yeah. Good rant in jerseys. MLB, fix your jerseys.
Fix your jerseys. Stay juicy.
Stay juicy.